It is the 160th day of a screenwriter's journey. This is a long one, not a incredibly long one, but pretty long, 36 minutes and 8 seconds, zero point 0.9 frames. And I must say that I've got a fair amount of more days written, but my voiceovers are barely keeping up with my uploads. I'm on day 157 I uploaded today, and this is 160. So it's like the Lucy and Ethel chocolate factory where you just got to keep going and going. It's a lot of, well, it's stupid to say. It is a lot of work. And I urge you to do it both for the discipline and the experience. And I think you'll learn something. And what I've learned is I do a lot of rewriting and I get frustrated. I think I've been more frustrated on this script than in scripts past. And I think part of that is because I thought I was in such a good place. And then, you know, the story, the guy gave me some comments, which really made me think and dig deep. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a lot of work to do. And as I feared, but I kidded myself into thinking it wouldn't be, it turned out to be kind of a page one rewrite, give or take. All right, so where are we here in the script now that I've summed up my deepest, darkest feelings? Page 28. Feels like I jumped ahead. I don't remember finishing day 159 so far into it. What's going on here? So they're driving up to the go-kart place. And now this is an interesting idea. And it kind of sets up something, and I don't think I just wrote this. I think I had written it before, but I don't remember commenting on it, about Lexi's line, I'll tell Jake my deep, dark secret if you promise to go out with the next cute guy you meet. And then maybe somewhat surprisingly, Lexi or Holly says to find cute, and I'll let you know when I see him. And then I have in the direction that Holly stops just short of a eye roll, which I guess that's kind of an interesting direction. Again, I'm in the eternal, never-ending, not really struggle, but debate of what to write in my action. If it isn't action, if it's just description, because of course you have to write a certain amount of blocking, for lack of a better word. You can't just have all dialogue or it becomes a stage play, and then the director does the blocking, which he still or she still does on a movie, but not to the same extent. Okay, so they're speeding along. How much you know about this lady? I'm not sure, I guess, but she's really become more of a mentor. So it's clear here that Luke and Jake obviously have never met Holly, and that's kind of changed here and there. Abby's line, I feel like she's become more like a mentor. It's not really true. I might have to change that if I haven't already. And then we get into here where Luke especially is, he's not a conspiracy theorist. I don't know how you would say that. But, you know, he is a little bit on that side of things, which is fine. Gives him a little different differentiation from the typical, you know, late tweens, early 20s, just whatever. Social justice warrior. Don't tell me this is as good as table news. I hope CNN's still around when this comes out. Well, that's kind of a double-edged statement, isn't it? Because obviously Luke refers to them, the cable airport news network. Is there any other business? If I'm going to date her, it sure is. You're talking about Lexi. Yeah, that's because they were talking about Holly, and then Jake makes that line, which could be construed as he's talking about Holly, which he's obviously not. So that might need a little tweaking. All right, they're up there at the racetrack, who hopefully will give us free publicity and pay us something for shooting there, or at least won't charge us. We thought you got lost. Change our minds. So they are, I mean, understandably, Jake and Luke want to kind of know what the deal is with Holly. Lexi has told them very little. She probably doesn't know, but she could be holding back just a tiny bit. But I think it's more she just doesn't know. She's never really pressed Lexi too much, or she doesn't want to, or whatever. This is a popular place, and then Holly makes this revelation that she's basically bought the place out for a couple hours, and the boys probably more excited than the girls, although it's pretty cool regardless. And in the first version, as you recall, gosh, that was a long time ago. Man, I need to go back and see when I actually wrote that first draft, because this is almost the end of 2021, December 30th. And I've got nothing better to do than work on my script. I was off of work for like 10 straight days. And I don't remember. Well, I think I maybe do have a couple of really long writing days coming up. The 30th would have been a Friday. Or no. Yeah, Friday. Anyways, where was I? Okay, so in the first version, Holly had, well, there was a helicopter flying overhead, and then Lexi's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And Holly said something about she didn't want to take any chances. So in this instance, there's nothing sad, but to me, the reason Holly has done that is so no one else will be around. She doesn't give any hints of that, and none of the others, in particular, Lexi, they never catch on, or she never says anything. So I kind of let that go by the wayside. And I think, if someone goes, hey, I bet she did that because she doesn't want any bad guys, or not bad guys literally, but she just wants them to be alone. So the attendant comes out. I picture him being like a real clown, not literally, but, super, who's ready to race? Like that's part of his patter that he's told to do that. Okay. All right, let's see here. Okay, so, yeah, that line right there needs to change. So I'm kind of seriously rewriting this scene. I think I mentioned sometimes I pause my recording and then I forget to start it. And then, so if you ever see a whole bunch of text or whatever come in, that's because I'm just hitting undo and it's just like spitting it out there. Okay. I'm jumping around. Oh my gosh, now I'm going backwards. Okay. So here we go with some new writing. Trying to take it a new direction because what I had in the previous, well, you can still see what I have there, and I don't know that really works. I don't know that that's anything Holly would say. So Jake, a little puffed up with himself. So suspenseful. It's funny when you like write a line and you think, oh, that's the perfect line, but then you can't think of anything to reply it with. And I don't know if that's the point I am now. Obviously, you should have the end in mind when you start your scene, but in this case, Even if you have the end in mind, I suppose you don't always know how you're going to get there. So then Holly introduces this idea of the aunt instead of the mom. Yeah, I don't know about this line of questioning because that's obviously a more of a mom thing to ask. He tells her 0. I'm trying to sort of get back to that line right under the part where I'm writing, because I sort of like that. But I don't know if it's something that people would really say or he would really say. Now I'm debating whether to change it or not. When in doubt, just say whatever. Whoop, I'm making just a couple subtle as he readies to get into his cart. So he's not in his cart. Before, I think he was like sliding into it. He turns away. It is interesting. Sometimes I remember what I wrote. Sometimes I'm literally have to wait until I write it to see. I mean, that don't really like the way I wrote that. A firm hand grips his arm. We all know it's Holly, so. So now I'm setting up some stakes for the race. STAKES. And now this line, see how long it takes me to come up with this line I thought of. I really like it. Ooh, look at that. So that's an instance of like, it's not typical question and answer. It kind of leads us on to the next scene. I think there's one pink card left. Classic. So Lexi is, she hasn't overheard what they've said, but she's certainly seen them talking, so it kind of raises her antennae a little, or antenna. That idea of just being blunt, I guess if you qualify it by saying, I'm going to be very blunt, then you can kind of get away with some lines like Jake did when they first met, and now Lexi does here. Jake kind of not really defensive. I think Holly or Lexi maybe. I have to go back and make sure she's really kind of as fragile, not really fragile, but kind of paranoid, maybe a little bit is a better word. Just answer a question. I'll make the same bit. Loser answers 2 questions. I like this, but I think it needs a little work. I don't know why 2 questions. Why not just 1? And then a little interplay between Luke and Jake that probably won't make the next draft. Then the surprise, surprise, here comes Holly. Oh, I laughed a lot when I wrote that line. I may have deleted it, but I think it's hilarious. I don't know. Maybe I rewrote what comes up to it, so I had to change it. But I think if delivered right, it would just be hysterical. I think nothing really changes because the people still need to win and lose, come in second and third, whatever. And the aftermath is going to change a little bit, I believe. It's always interesting when you leave the previous scene unchanged and yet you're going to take the current scene in a whole different direction, which if you think about it is kind of weird that nothing leading up to it changes and yet the scene changes. Or maybe that's not weird. I don't know. Plenty of racing left. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Lexi would say that because they don't know how many races they're going to have if they're really going to race for 2 hours. That's kind of a bad line about Jake stifling his gut reaction, because how does an actor play that? I don't know, maybe you could. I don't know how you would describe where you're just about ready to go off on someone and then you hold it back. Oop. Usual husband. So I made a little tweak there. Guess everyone is overconfident. I definitely missed something. Yeah, that doesn't really work. I don't think. When in doubt, ringing phone or explosion or someone bursts into the room. Holly, whoop. I think Lexi has a pretty good idea who it is based on Holly's reaction. So I think that's why I cut off Holly's line. I don't even know that she needs to say that. I mean, I don't think she would. Looks like some deep thought is going into this. Emotions to take it. It's work, which is what exactly? I like that. I would get rid of that line of Holly's. I think Holly just moves off. I didn't tell him anything because that's how much I know. Then he comes with a change my mind line again. What do they share? It's so exciting. I had to set up the we're not done racing yet. Holly, yes, we are. So things change. So we're kind of into the fun and games pretty well. We've just had some fun and games, literally, and now it's getting a little more serious. As far as Holly knows, the boys aren't going to go with them, so that motivates her line to them. Luke more concerned with the free racing that they're going to lose out on. So this is some new writing here. I don't know if I've been as far as page 37. I'm into uncharted territory. Virgin snow. Where are we going? It's your goal. If they go, who goes, how much they know. So Holly, again, putting it back on Lexi to make these decisions. Would she really do that? I guess it depends how dangerous Holly perceives what they're about to do might be. Based on this, of course, she could always override what Lexi says, but based on this, she's still not thinking it's going to be that big of a deal. Closes her eyes, breathes in. Breathes in. So that, so Holly leaves it up to Lexi. Lexi answers. I think I just need to tinker around with this a little because they can't just sit around here talking. They got to get a move on. But Lexi, for reasons that we could probably say are at least semi-motivated, has asked Jake to come with her, which Jake is happy about. Lexi's happy about. Holly's probably not super happy, but she did give Lexi the option, so she can't really renege on it now. Whoops, that should be Luke's line. So they're, try to keep up this time. I think that's from the old version or one of the versions. And I think it is obviously Jake absolving himself of having not lost, but getting there so far behind Holly up to the race car place or the go-kart place. All right. Uh-oh. Oh, great. Now I'm going back. Ah! So instead of getting into his car, I kind of changed that up. I don't know why. What do you think so far? Wow, I left that line. When Holly says, what do you think so far? Jake goes immediately to a different topic. Like you do it so many girls you've had. Yeah, this. I don't really. I mean, I guess if it was played just right, it would. It might be a cool scene, but if it's played wrong, it would really be a stinker. So, I may need to change that. It is funny how sometimes you write something and then you try to hold yourself to it, like that 2 questions answered. And then at some point, you might realize, oh my gosh, I have to have 2 good questions. And then you stop and think, well, I could have 3 or 1 or 6. But once you write something, it does kind of gain a little bit of real estate. I guess it's like planting a flag and you don't really want to pull it up and turn around. But sometimes that's the best thing you can do. It is really weird when you're making artificial reality and artificial truth as you see it, and yet as soon as you state it, it sort of becomes, it becomes not the norm, but it becomes the reality, and then you've got to start building things around it. And sometimes you get stubborn and you go, well, I wrote that, I can't change it. And you're like, yeah, you can because you made up the story. So it's kind of funny. So I did go back and I changed some stuff here. I'm not exactly sure what prompted me to, but this is, very small tweaks. Holly leaves it up to, I don't know, I was just talking about this a minute ago, if Holly really would care, or does she think that Lexi's not going to want any of them to come, or maybe just Abby. And I kind of like that. Where are we going doesn't matter. Obviously, what Jake is saying is, I want to, spend more time with Lexi, so I don't care. And Luke kind of realizes that too. So it's, I don't know. I like it right now, and yet I fear that I may not keep that. Or maybe part of it, maybe you don't always need to put a button on the end of every scene. He gives chase. I don't know who he's giving chase to. I'm going back. No. You don't mind writing him back. How's the leg room? So they have a little interplay here. I remember when I wrote that scene, I'm thinking, do I really need that, or do I just cut to them driving? It's just a little back and forth. Probably not needed. And then you think, logistically, we've got to set up that scene. We got to light it. We got to rehearse it, even though there's just 3 lines. So if you think of production, there's a minimum half hour to an hour just for that simple little scene. So you really want to spend that time. Of course, the beauty about all these Jeep moving shots is either they'll be done, they'll be faked on a green screen or a blue screen, or of course you could do it actually going down the road, but that's not done unless there's a big reason to, typically. It's in the middle. How about this? You just answer that question. So this, basically the way it's been set up, Jake's lost the bet, so each of the women get to ask him 2 questions that he has to answer. But now, whatever the question has been from Holly, Lexi is kind of letting him off the hook because obviously maybe it's an embarrassing answer or something. And I seem to have walked away from my writing. So I've got Jake's. How is he going to... So he's answered a question that we didn't hear. And so obviously in his answer, he's not going to repeat the question, but we have to know what the question is. And that's a technique as old as the hills. So you can probably guess what the question is based on what he just said. So even though it's kind of clever and maybe a little funny, and it certainly reveals something of his character, is it too contrived? Lexi enters to kind of break the tension and express her thanks, I guess you could say. But, and just so you know, I was going to ask, it's impossible. So this is kind of cutesy stuff, but I think not really. Well, I do like when Jake says maybe later, because that speaks more than what he is saying. Pardon my wife making humming noises in the background. It sounds like the Imperial crown from the old commercials. Remember that? Dun da da dun. Okay. So there's an adjective, defiantly. Is it needed? Why do people hate adjectives? You tell me. Okay. So again, would Holly ask that? Maybe she would, just for the purposes of embarrassing him. Certainly not the answer they were expecting. Is it the truth? I would think so. Jake is kind of a straight-laced guy. He knows what he wants. He doesn't want anything to get in the way, which may, up until now, may have meant a girlfriend, but not necessarily. So here I am. What page am I? Oh my gosh. See, isn't this crazy? Why am I suddenly going back 30, 20 pages? What made me think of this? It's just crazy. So we're back to here where her father just got out of prison. So I don't know what made me think of that, but it is, Holly would know probably more and sooner than Rachel. I don't know how, if she's in witness security, or until recently, well, she is right now. So how, I guess, I mean, she could still call the jail, but I don't know. It just doesn't really seem realistic. It seems like Holly would know. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Holly would know more easily and readily and for more reasons. I'll check to see if he's been, then there's like some shop talk there. Why did I go back and change this? I still like Rachel's line there. If you're worried about finding me, can't, he won't. So that still needs, that part on page 11 still needs a little cleanup, I believe. Why do I so long to tell me? I can't believe that I'm literally going back this far. It's like that old, that adage. It's not an adage. It's like that or the metaphor, the example of the snow where you've got to back up. When it's too deep, you got to back up before you go forward. Okay, let's see if I... So I did change that. You need to go to the Columbus office. I don't know. Did I change that just now, or did I change it earlier? I looked away from the screen for a minute, and when it came back, it was down to here. Because I got some correspondence from the deputy U.S. Marshal, who kind of told me approximately what would happen. And so it's just such a long block of dialogue from Holly. I mean, that's the most she says in the whole script. He's out, but as long as which isn't going to happen. So that is just for accuracy's sake. But you know what they say, never sacrifice a good story for accuracy, or at least weigh the two. Whoops, deleted. Whoa, hip, hoo, jumping all around. Something you're worried about. Holy mackerel, what am I doing? So now I'm back. I think I had to make that change in the backstory to sync up with what I'm going to write here. How much of that do you think they're fact-checking right now? So Abby has just told Luke a bunch of stuff, kind of an info dump while we weren't there, and now Luke is reacting to it. I'm trying to think. Again, I'm the writer, so I should know this. What Abby would have told Luke to get that response, and why she would have told him what she told him, and how much did she tell him, because she claims she doesn't really know that much. So what could have she told him about Lexi's past? So that's kind of open for debate. That's mildly interested. The payoff, the all the more reason for her to be guarded, but what leads up to that may need a little bit of work. Feds aren't known. Whoops. Sorry, I was just thinking of something else for a minute. I just blanked. You can't rule it out. So Luke is still on this kick that Holly is some sort of a Fed. Let alone let us come along. I don't know if that's worded grammatically quite right, but so that's of course the dichotomy that more than one person pointed out in the earlier version. I didn't look at my time and now I've run out. Wow, that was a long day, and yet there's longer ones to come. Day 160 in the books. I guess I made progress. I got up to page 40, 41, and then I went back and forth. But that's how it goes on a screenwriter's journey.